Okay, beautiful people, we're about to start soon, so I will be getting ready. I am getting ready right now. Okay, welcome back to my live stream. I'm feeling a little under the weather, so if I like mute my mic and I turn off my camera, it's to like blow my nose. But this is my MCU live stream. There has been a lot of new developments in the MCU on what is going to be happening, and a lot of shows have been canceled, like Daredevil Born Again, and a couple other TV shows. I believe Agatha Agatha, whatever they kept changing the name to, Agatha, I believe, got canceled as well, or it's postponed again. But we are going to be diving into all of that soon. But first, I wanted to start off this stream with a reaction to comic. As you can see on the screen, Comics Explains. He did a pitch for a Wolverine movie. So we are going to be hearing his pitch out, and I am going to be reacting to his pitch because honestly, he is one of the, probably, in my opinion, he's probably the best comic YouTuber on the platform. You know, with Variant and I can't think of the other one, but you guys know, if you guys are comic fans and watch comic YouTubers, you know who I'm talking about. Even Top 10 Nerds, they're good as well. They know what they're talking about. It's just that they just do top 10, so it's not very, you know, it's just more character information than what Comics Explained does. He breaks down the comics and he makes it enjoyable. But that's besides the point. He made a pitch of a Wolverine, how I believe it's either how to introduce Wolverine or a Wolverine movie. He just says my MCU Wolverine pitch. It's only a 9-minute video. Like I said, hold on 1 second so I can. Okay, sorry about that, but now we're gonna jump right into it. But my plan is to just watch videos of people reading going off what the interviews say, and then we're going to cross-reference their sources to whatever they say, whatever they leave the link to, whatever their sources in the video. Anybody that joins later, you can ask what we're doing, and you know, I will answer any questions that pop up on the screen. But let's get into Comics Explained pitch really quick. I gotta actually change something. There we go. Skip. Pause. Unmute.
The basis behind all of this is Hydra. And I know people are going to say, oh my god, Hydra's been done to death. Has it though? Because by the end of this, I think you're going to be like, yeah, man.
Let's go.
Hi guys, this is Rob, and this is my pitch for Wolverine in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So first things first, the basis behind all of this is Hydra. And I know people are going to say, oh my god, Hydra's been done to death. Has it though? Because by the end of this, I think you're going to be like, yeah, man, that should be how it's done in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just hear me out. This has 3 plot threads. Each one's very, very easy to follow. I'll explain what the plot thread is and how to why it works. Plot thread number 1. Hydra creates Weapons Plus. What's Weapons Plus? In Marvel Comics, Weapons Plus was introduced to us in New X-Men issue number 128. And the idea behind it is that it was initially a United States government program, and then eventually a joint venture between the United States CIA and Canada's Department H. But the overall goal here was to basically contain and control the mutant threat. And in fact, in Marvel Comics, Captain America was Weapon 1, Project Rebirth. He was supposed to be the first in a new line of super soldiers that were tasked for the purpose of containing and controlling mutants. World War II was a field test. If Captain America proved to be successful, which he was, and And if he had returned to the United States at the end of the war, which he didn't, his mind would have been wiped and he would have gone forward as the first in a new line of super soldiers to stand against the rising mutant population in the United States. We would take that concept and we would modify it. What we would say here is that, as we know in Captain America the Winter Soldier, Hydra was secretly taking control of S.H.I.E.L.D. The problem is that while they did want their own line of Captain Americas that could basically do Hydra's bidding, Steve Rogers was believed to be dead. We know he was alive and frozen in a block of ice, but Hydra didn't know that, and so there was no way to extract the super soldier serum from his blood. At the same time, Abraham Erskine was the only person to have the formula for the super soldier serum, but he died in Captain America 1, so there was no way to create new super soldiers that would be identical to Captain America. And so as part of a series of just extremely covert projects that were maintained at black sites, Weapons Plus was introduced as a series of programs to create various versions of super soldiers. The great thing about this is you can take a lot of what's already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just roll it into Weapons Plus. The most obvious example here would be Bucky Barnes, right? But what you could also do is you could say, like, the entirety of the Red Room, the Black Widow program, that's all Weapons Plus. You could say even that, like, the Purple Man, Zebediah Killgrave, given his age and the time at which Hydra was defeated, he basically gained his powers through the experiments of his parents long before Hydra was defeated in Captain America the Winter Soldier. So you could say that, like, the Purple Man from Jessica Jones was a Weapons Plus product. But that's the first plot thread. Hydra creates Weapons Plus. Plot thread number 2.
All right, before we go into plot thread number 2, plot thread number 1 is actually pretty solid, using Hydra, and because let's be real with the MCU, the first half, well, I would say the first season and a half of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. line up with the MCU, and then they start doing their own thing, which I've been working on. You know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is more relevant now than ever video, but it's just taking me a long time to get through it. But it just has the whole thing with we know, you know what I mean, obviously we don't have to use the whole Phil Coulson and the Inhuman part of it. That's why I said the first season and a half, because at the end of the second season is when Daisy Johnson starts getting her Inhuman powers or whatever, so we could just cut that out and just use the whole fact of S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsing, like Rob just explained, and have it as, okay, S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed. Now obviously in WandaVision we were introduced to Sword, and now we have Sword in the picture taking over of what pretty much what S.H.I.E.L.D. was doing, but they seem a little bit more hardcore. But the whole Weapons X being there from the beginning, because technically he's like he's right, technically with the Weapons X program, Captain America is Weapon 1. So, and Winter Soldier, like he said, the scientist died, so they could use that as experiment, just to, like, you know, the experiments throughout the years. And when we do see Wolverine, he is Weapon 10 like he's supposed to be, because throughout the years, and making a great point with bringing in the Jessica Drew character, the Purple Man, him being a Weapons Plus project. Also Scarlet Witch could be a Weapons Plus project, because we know from what was it, not Multiverse of Madness, I think it was Multiverse of Madness, that Wanda was pretty much a Hydra experiment. So it'll all fall in line, and it'll all make sense as long as, like, it goes in that direction.
Hydra creates adamantium accidentally. So here's how this would work. In Black Panther 1, one of the things that we learned is that the only way to attain vibranium was within Wakanda itself. Unless you were someone like Ulysses Claw, who managed to somehow sneak in and then escape with your life, albeit with a little bit of vibranium, there was no conceivable way to get your hands on it. But we learned in Black Panther 2 that a vibranium deposit exists in the Atlantic Ocean. So what we say here is that at some point along the line, either either as part of Weapons Plus or some other project that Hydra was working on, they were trying to find vibranium. They learned that it existed in Wakanda, but they knew there was no way to get in there. But they discovered vibranium in the Atlantic. But much like the opening scene from Black Panther 2, when you had that group trying to get vibranium, that Hydra was attacked. The difference is that Hydra managed to escape with a tiny little piece of vibranium. And so what they did is they took that shard of vibranium and they handed it over to a guy named Myron McClane. Now, why am I using that name? Because in Marvel Comics, Myron McClane is the guy who created adamantium. So a little bit of history here, right? Kind of back away from this theory for a second in this Wolverine video. Let's talk about comic book history. So when Captain America was first introduced, he had literally a shield in the shape of an iron. But during World War II, he went to Wakanda and fought alongside the Wakandans against the forces of Rommel and the Germans. During this time, he realized that Wakandans were using circular shields, which could be used offensively in the sense that you could throw it, or it could be used defensively in that it could block things. Not only that, at the end of the campaign, as thanks for helping the Wakandans, he was given a tiny piece of vibranium. And so he goes back to the United States and he orders the federal government to create a new shield that's round and to make it out of vibranium. This entire project was handed over to Myron McClane. Again, we're still talking about the comic books here. Myron McClane actually fell asleep during the process. And when he woke up, he basically discovered a kind of vibranium iron hybrid, right? Called proto-adamantium. But in an attempt to recreate this proto-adamantium, he created true adamantium. Now, proto-adamantium is stronger, right? I mean, that's why Wolverine's claws cannot cut through Captain America's shield. But what we would do here is we would more or less copy this process absent the whole thing with Captain America, that Hydra was able to escape with a tiny piece of vibranium, and they ended up handing it over to Myron McClane, the best metallurgist that Hydra had working for them, and their task was find a way to duplicate this. The problem was he couldn't duplicate it, but during the process, he ended up creating a new metal that was more durable than vibranium, but did not have any of the sound absorbing properties of vibranium. And he ended up calling it adamantium. Now, the most logical question to ask here is that if adamantium has been made here, then why haven't we seen it at any point in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Well, the first answer to that question is that Myron McClane was only able to make so much adamantium, right? Just a relatively limited amount of it, given the shard of vibranium that was available to him. The second reason is because adamantium has to stay in a liquid state. The instant it hardens, you can never get it back to a liquid state again, right? So if Hydra was going to use it, they better make it good, right? This is like a single use case material. So that's plot thread number 2. Hydra creates adamantium by accident. Plot thread number 3. James Howlett. And this is probably going to be the most divisive part of this pitch. The healing factor of James Howlett did not activate when he was a little kid. His origin, as you traditionally know it in Marvel Comics and even in the Wolverine Origins film, is not the origin that we're going with. We're going with the origin from the Ultimate Universe. So here's the way this would work in the MCU, right? This is my pitch for James Howlett. This I think is probably one of the coolest parts, right? Here's what we would do. James Howlett is a guy who's part of like a Black Ops wet work team that operates through the CIA, right? They're called Team X, right? Similar to what you saw in Wolverine Origins, but not crappy. But this team is solid. They're the best there is at what they do. These guys will take out any target. It doesn't matter what it is. If a face comes across their desk, that guy gets killed. Here's a kicker to all of this. They were operating as agents of Hydra. They simply didn't know it because Hydra was secretly controlling S.H.I.E.L.D. And while they were not getting their orders from S.H.I.E.L.D. per se, they were getting their orders from the CIA. And as we know, Hydra didn't simply just have agents in S.H.I.E.L.D. They had agents in the upper echelon of the federal government and throughout every single intelligence organization, which meant that the various targets that Team X was taking out, we could say this takes place during like the 60s and 70s, right? During the Cold War, basically, that the various targets that Team X was taking out, they were Hydra targets. They were people that were a threat to Hydra. Now, because Team X was so good at what they did, Hydra decided to bring them in as their newest test subjects for Weapons Plus, which is the Weapon X program. Weapon 10, whatever you want to call it. And as you would expect with a program like this, they were drawing blood and they were scanning their bodies and so on and so forth. But Hydra comes to the realization that James Howlett, codenamed Wolverine when he was on the team, that he has a gene in his body that does not match anything in the human genome. They don't know what it is. And so they activate it. Boom, he has a healing factor. And that's when they realize, this is our assassin. This is the guy that we use our adamantium on. If this guy can heal from anything, take this indestructible metal, bond it to his skeleton, brainwash him, and send him out as an assassin. Such as it is, he ended up escaping the brainwashing process even after the adamantium was bonded to his body and effectively took off. And Hydra just wasn't able to find him again for any number of reasons, right? You could just chalk it up to like his Black Ops training, that he's very good at staying hidden. But again, this is all just kind of an idea that I have. Let me know what you guys think about.
This was muted. I didn't even know I was muted. That's crazy. I was saying how Rob Rob explained this perfectly, and if we go by pretty much what he was saying and using the MCU, taking what happened in the comics of the Ultimate Universe of how the adamantium is made and incorporate it into the story, and we use the whole Hydra like he was saying in phase 1 of his idea, and combining it, it'll be perfect because during in Winter Soldier there was like 8 other capsules when they were in the area where Bucky was created, and if there was 8 other people technically that were tested on there, Captain America would be the 9th and Wolverine would be the 10th. So it actually makes sense, and it'll fit, like it'll slide perfectly in our universe. So I actually do like this pitch. I don't see much wrong with it. I would enjoy it to happen that way, because it's such a smooth way of just sneaking it in there, because from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. we know that Hydra has been infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. since day one, pretty much. So, and then with the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., everything will line up with weapons, well, 1 through 10, and I just enjoy that explanation so much, and it just seems really plausible in the way they structured the MCU. So if they do some sort of variant in that nature, I would not be upset about that. Now let's check out Den of Nerds put out he's talking about a reboot. Oh, this is his live stream. is it? So, I'm just gonna type den of sorry, I'm in my basement. That's where I have my setup at. Huge drama, Deadpool 3 leaks are a freak. Was it Avengers Prime? Not Ahsoka. I think he posted it right before Ahsoka. Gosh. Okay, we'll watch this one right here. We'll do the reboot one and we'll talk about that afterwards.
Recently, and for no reason at all, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to.
Is Marvel Studios down so bad that they need a reboot? Believe it or not, that's what some insiders are saying is actually going to happen. I honestly kind of can't believe it, but it appears to be real. So holy crap, is this a big freaking deal? And we got a lot of stuff to unpack in this video. We're kind of in uncharted waters here, so let's break it down. I also want to say right at the top here, guys, I am
Excuse
so
me?
excited to talk about my comic book Unity, which I've been working on for years, and it's finally launching its Kickstarter. We need your help to create this book, to bring this new IP to life. I'll talk more about my creator. Okay, so let's talk about the reboot. What the hell's going on? Well, this popped up a couple of days ago from Can We Get Some Toast, who is a very reliable insider. They say here, the writing's on the wall. Avengers Secret Wars is very likely setting up a soft reboot to the entire MCU. Kind of like what The Flash did for the DCU. It'll be a send-off for not only the...
Okay, just a little note on, like, Secret Wars was not as bad as people, I would say, said it was. I really enjoyed it up until like the last 2 episodes, but how I've been personally looking at the MCU movies as tie-ins, like if you read comics you understand, like tie-ins are like 2-3 issues. They just tell a simple story about somebody that's about to come into the main whatever comic, the whatever big event that is happening. So I look at the shows like that, and I think that's why I've been able to like enjoy them more than most people. But other than that, like, I can see where people are coming from, where they're expecting like these MCU movie and TV shows type of things, and like granted, like the first couple TV shows after the first season of Loki, they kept like repeating themselves. Oh, you have a wholesome setup with some conflict in the middle to a big battle at the end. And it seemed like they were just washing their material. So I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying, they're owned by Disney. That's what Disney does. Like, they just made a Haunted House 3, and I think that's like the 5th time that they've personally done it, not including like the original Haunted House back in the day. But that's beside the point. Like I do understand where people feel like that we're just getting the same setups, just with different characters, with the same ending results, with a big bad coming out and them having to defeat it. So like I do understand why we need a new like a soft reboot, but after the whole time thing with Loki, like I felt like so like that was just my thoughts behind it.
The entirety of the Fox verse, the MCU that we've all grown to love. In the aftermath will be all new, all different MCU. And man, that's a topsy-turvy roller coaster ride of a report, and I don't really know how to feel. So I guess it might be best to start with what even is a soft reboot. What is Toast talking about referring to The Flash? Well, soft reboot is basically like a big retcon. You can keep some of the continuity that you've established, characters, story, etc. But some of it is changed and retroactively becomes the new continuity. That's what retcon means. And so in the case of The Flash, I believe Toast is referring to the original plan for The Flash, not the new one, because now The Flash is completely meaningless to the DCU, at least as far as I understand it. But before James Gunn came on board, The Flash was going to reset or retcon the DCEU. Basically, Barry was going to go into the past or the future and do a bunch of time traveling Flashpoint shenanigans. And then when he returned to his home universe, things would be different. The universe would be changed. You would see familiar faces like Jason Momoa's Aquaman and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, but instead of having Ben Affleck as Batman and Henry Cavill as Superman, you were going to have Michael Keaton as a much older Bruce Wayne / Batman, and you were essentially going to have Sasha Calle as the Superman / Supergirl of that new universe. And this did happen in DC Comics with the Flashpoint event. It changed a lot of different things in the universe. And Marvel Comics has also had soft reboots and sort of retcons and resets to their continuity throughout their history of comics. So before we go any further, I just want to know, like, what do you guys think of that? Do you think this would be a good idea or a bad idea for the MCU? And I suppose the next logical question is, like, why would Marvel do this? Why would they choose to retroactively change the continuity and to use Secret Wars to reboot? Well, in a lot of ways, Secret Wars is the perfect opportunity to do this. We are facing a multiversal war, and it appears that they will be adapting a lot of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars, which essentially sees the entirety of the multiverse destroyed except for Battleworld. And the way that story concludes is with Reed Richards getting the powers of the Beyonder, and with his reality warping son, Franklin Richards, he recreates each and every reality and basically rebuilds the multiverse. But in Marvel Comics, when that happened, things were changed. There was no more Ultimates universe out there, and instead Miles Morales was put into the 616 main universe continuity. That allowed Miles Morales and Peter Parker to both be alive at the same time. Dr. Doom of Earth 616 was also changed post Secret Wars, and he seemed to have some memory of what happened on Battleworld and decided to become a hero. The Avengers were totally different and even caused a second civil war, which saw Captain Marvel versus Tony Stark this time and led to the death of Captain Marvel and took out a lot of the other Avengers as well. But now I want to talk about some older established rumors that might help us better understand what Marvel's actually planning here. Over a year ago, Heavy Spoilers put out a big video talking about everything he knew about Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. And in that video, Paul talks about how there were plans to consolidate all of the Marvel universes in the post-Secret Wars MCU. He talked about potential Fox characters becoming a part of the main 616 continuity, and he also talked about Sony characters like Tom Hardy's Venom coming into the MCU and just having one universe for all of these different actors. Now, I also remember around that same time, Grace Randolph was reporting that she had heard some of the Fox X-Men could be brought into the 616 MCU and be the X-Men for Feige's MCU. And I'm pretty sure Grace was talking about how that was just one idea that was on the table for Marvel back then, but it sort of shows that Marvel's been considering this for some time, and I think they've been eyeing Avengers Secret Wars as a potential reboot or soft reboot point. And there are basically two ways this could go down. The first way would be something like a consolidation, taking the actors that still wanted to play their comic book roles and putting them all into a singular continuity. And I think the way this would work is basically keeping all of the canon from Marvel's 616 so far, like the entirety of the Infinity Saga, phases 4, leading into phase 5 maybe, and essentially maybe the destruction of Earth 616 and all the craziness that's going to happen right before Secret Wars, that would all be erased. All of that stuff would not exist in the canon. And I believe in this scenario, you'd bring characters back like Chris Evans' Captain America, like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Maybe you'd even have Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in that main continuity. You could have Tom Hardy play Eddie Brock, but he's a new version of Eddie Brock, like more comic accurate for the sake of Marvel. And I think that wouldn't be so bad. Like, that would be kind of cool. A consolidated universe. You don't change a lot of the canon. You just sort of bring everybody back together, and via Secret Wars, you sort of, you know, wave your magic comic book wand and make everything make sense. But it's also possible that the MCU that we know would be completely destroyed along with the rest of the multiverse, and this new softly rebooted MCU would be establishing its own and new canon. So there'd be no Battle of New York, there'd be no Eternals and the Celestials coming, there'd be no Civil War, there'd be no Thanos attacking Earth, no Wakandan stronghold standing up to Thanos in Infinity War, there'd be no Snap, there'd be no...
That's
a
right.
completely new canon. And this could be interesting for Marvel. It would allow them to perhaps bring in new actors to play Tony Stark.
I'm tight. My shit was...
Perhaps the opportunity to establish the X-Men right alongside these other characters, which is something that Marvel doesn't seem to have an answer for. Like at this point, he's developing the Fox X-Men and going back to stuff from old franchises, but he hasn't really established the X-Men at all in the MCU. He hasn't established Doctor Doom, Magneto, like any of these awesome characters. They don't really all exist in the MCU. So maybe what they're trying to do is reset everything and sort of retell the first chapters of the MCU with access to all the different characters like the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom, Galactus, the Avengers. It goes on and on and on.
The Den of Nerds brings up a great point just now about how we have no traces of the X-Men and all these other forms of teams in the MCU right now, and that brings me up to a point where I was trying to explain, but my mic was muted, but whatever. That we are not the 616 MCU because of the simple fact that we don't have mutants. There's a lot of things that, like, you know, they're trying to incorporate, like in She-Hulk they incorporated powered individuals, but they didn't really call them mutants, and that's where I feel like that's where the line is drawn, because like they're trying to make it seem like mutants have been here the whole time, but then again, like I feel like in the actual comics that they were way more of an impact in the comics, that if we bring them in now, that it's just going to be like, where were you? People are just going to ask stupid questions like, where were you during Thanos, during this, during that? And it's just going to be like, I don't want to say like a fight, but more of a like more conflict, which could bring the X-Men stories like probably better drama to it. But at the end of the day, like, that's why I firmly don't believe that our MCU is the 616 universe. Like it just doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of things missing, and a lot of our characters are heavily based off of the Ultimate Universe versions of themselves. So that too. So let's finish with...
Explain this via Secret Wars and the destruction of the cosmos, because in Marvel Comics there are multiple versions of the cosmos, and they always end and then they always come back. And Marvel's dealing with some really big freaking ideas with Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, Battle World, all of that kind of stuff. So it's very possible we might see the end of...
It's gonna kill me if Jonathan Majors isn't playing Kang anymore. He's such a tremendous actor, despite whatever allegations was posted on him. Like, this is not what this stream is about, but like, he brought a lot of depth to that character, and you know what I mean. I hope to see him suit up again.
Of this version of the cosmos, and then do a soft reboot with barely anybody that we recognize from the old MCU. And I honestly don't love that. Like, I prefer the first version, like bring everybody back, consolidate everything together. But I could see the appeal for actually just rebooting it all and reestablishing the MCU with the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Avengers all existing at once. But the truth is, guys, as cool as these possibilities are and as interesting as they are to consider, this will not solve solve Marvel's biggest problem. I absolutely think that their continuity and the way they want to tie everything together is sort of weighing down the MCU. It's really weird, right? I mean, Shang-Chi is maybe one of the best Phase 4 movies. We won't see him again for like 6 or 7 years after that. We're being flooded with content about characters that are not as interesting and that we don't care as much about. Now, Marvel's trying to address that bloat. They're canceling projects. I think they might even be canceling plans they have with the Scarlet Witch and focusing on Doctor Strange instead. But at the end of the day, the big problem here is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe no longer feels character driven, and it doesn't feel like something that we can follow easily. I think a total reboot could actually fix some of those problems, but I think a soft reboot sort of threatens to compound these issues, make them even more complicated, and make audiences even more confused. So what Marvel really needs to do is get some incredible characters in these main stories and have the story of the MCU follow a group of characters we really love that are defined, having flaws and having good things about them, and they need to carry that story through the multiverse saga into the next few Avengers movies. If they don't do that, I think the point is moot. I don't think the reboot solves any of the problems, and I think you will have lost a lot of goodwill with the audience. And speaking of that, let me just talk about my comic book real quick. I have the link in the description if you're interested in checking out. We could really use your help. This is a very ambitious. Now, this is a really ambitious goal.
All right, the rest is just him talking about his comic book. Den of Nerds, if you want to go support, you know what I mean, support if you so choose and desire. But let's talk about the reboot and pros and cons. Like he said, it would be like counterproductive in my opinion as well if we went through all of this and then we just see a brand new cast of characters that we don't know nothing about. It's like just you know what I mean, like Tom Cruise as Iron Man. Like, it'd be cool for him to show up and fight along Tony Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. That would be cool. But for him to just like I'm using him as an example because he's one of the biggest people fan casted as Iron Man, but like, you know what I mean, I just feel like it would be counterproductive like in those situations. And like it would be a perfect way to like, okay, here's a real big event, bring in you can bring in, you know, the X-Men from other universes and then mix and match who you want to keep, who you want to get rid of, and pretty much form our X-Men team like that after the reset. Because like I said, we don't have an X-Men team. We did in Kamala Khan get that little newsletter, oh, man with, or it was either that or She-Hulk, man with claws get into a bar fight, which we know Wolverine is in the MCU, in our version of the MCU, but it could only be because of the fact that Loki did the whole time mess up. So like, you know what I mean, they're good. We can use a lot of things that we already did as variables to like why things are happening, and I kind of like that. And it would be cool to see certain characters come back, certain people come back as certain characters. So I do kind of agree with him on some points. Let's see if I can find. Wow, the Secret Wars leaks are wild. Tom Holland chose one. There's proof, and can. I could have sworn he did a video. Or was a screen crushed? Let me see. Okay, here we go.
I picked the software engineering program because they pay very well. It's a fast-paced industry. The boot camp allowed me to keep my job, honestly, and continue working.
Oh, would not mind seeing Daredevil again.
Historically, we've been light in that department.
Hey, welcome back, Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy, and you've probably already heard the news. Marvel is scrapping Daredevil Born Again, and they're starting fresh.
We need to take the whole line back to formula. Back to formula. Back to formula.
But hang on, I'm going to explain why this is actually a good thing. What? But I thought you liked Daredevil. Oh, dude, I love Daredevil. So I'm really excited to see Marvel take a step back and do this show right. Now, a little later, I'm going to bring in two Marvel experts, Screen Crush editor-in-chief Matt Singer and YouTuber Whitney Van Landingham, so they can make sense of all this. But first, let me explain what the hell's actually going on here and why the Daredevil show is probably going to be awful. And a little later, I want to talk about what I hope Marvel does with this, because this could potentially remake the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the most exciting way possible. So we all know that Marvel has been great at making movies for more than a decade. What you may not know is how this studio operates. Now, normally, a studio hires a screenwriter, then finds a director to shoot the script. The director is then given the artistic...
Thanks, K9. I'm just a little sick. You know, I got today and tomorrow off of work, so I was like, let me stream, make myself feel a little bit better, and see what's going on with the MCU. And you know, I appreciate the care, you caring about my health. I appreciate that. But yeah, my nephew got me sick, so you know, there's not much you could do. He's a baby, so he gets everybody sick. But I appreciate that.
Such a hands-on approach with its franchises, and Marvel was actually running more like a traditional TV show. So then how do you run a TV show? Well, typically a TV show has a producer, usually the show's creator and head writer, called the showrunner. This person is the main creative force behind the show, like the director of a film. Some showrunners have become famous for a very distinct style. Aaron Sorkin, Dan Harmon, Terry Matalas, Vince Gilligan. These writers all have their own fans, the way directors like Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg have their fans. Now, TV directors have a much smaller role in the creative process, executing the vision of the showrunner. So, over the years, Marvel actually evolved to work more like a giant TV show. But, according to The Hollywood Reporter and the new book, The Reign of Marvel Studios, Marvel stumbled when they began to make shows for Disney+. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Hey, what are you doing on your phone anyways? Oh, sorry, man, this is Dungeon Hunter 6. They're the sponsor of this video. Oh, what's Dungeon Hunter 6? Glad you asked. This is a free-to-play mobile ARPG with a unique hero collector feature rendered in a stunning fantasy style. Pilot. Oh, what's a pilot? I'll let Jules explain.
Well, the way they pick TV shows is they make one show. That show's called a pilot. Then they show that one show to the people who pick shows. And on the strength of that one show, they decide if they want to make more shows.
But Marvel just skipped this process, just greenlighting shows without pilot scripts. They also broke with the traditional TV format, hiring writers to script the series, but then handing creative control over to the director. For most of their shows, this resulted in a story that felt more like a long movie that was just cut up into sections. That's why when you watch Secret Invasion, some episodes are only 30 minutes long, others are 45 minutes, and some of them just seem to stop in the middle of the story for no reason. Okay, so why did Marvel change their TV format?
I was literally just talking about that's probably one of the reasons why people haven't been liking it, is because they're too flip-floppy on what they want to do and what they want to tell in a full story. So like, you know, I was mainly going by like certain shows were 6 episodes, certain shows were 8. Like Loki, I think is 9 episodes. WandaVision was like 9 episodes. The Hawkeye and Winter Soldier one was the Hawkeye one was like 6 episodes. The Winter Soldier one and Captain America, because he's Captain America one, was about 6-7 episodes. So that kind of, I feel like, threw people off, because even though like now we're conditioned because of Netflix and other shows to have a standard like 8 to 10 episode series with an hour long, and each hours like a mini movie. So like when we're getting 30 minutes one week, 45 minutes next week, oh, this one's a 52 minute one. But then you take in consideration there's about 6-7 minutes of you know, cast and credits. So like we're really only seeing, you know, not much of a show. And like he said, it's like a movie broke down into 6 parts just to, you know, give us something every week.
Because they're Marvel, they've been so innovative with everything else, they thought they could just reinvent TV on the fly. Like how Marvel movies have a very improvisational, let's fix it in post attitude, but you cannot just fix it in post with the TV show. When you're creating 6 to 8 hours of programming, the production schedule is insane. So when the studio bosses started to tweak the shows, it caused all these post-production problems and reshoots that led to splits with the creative talent. I mean, some reports say Secret Invasion reshot basically the entire show. And we see this creative tension behind the scenes on Marvel shows, like on Moon Knight, when the show creator and writer Jeremy Slater quit and Mohamed Diab took over. And this might explain why so much of Moon Knight felt like a sliced up movie, with plot points repeating themselves over and over again. How many times can they search for an artifact that's going to lead them to the new place, you know? But Secret Invasion is when the Marvel method really broke down. The Hollywood Reporter piece is damning. Now, Marvel hired a TV legend, Kyle Bradstreet, who is a veteran of the excellent series Mr. Robot. He worked on writing the series for an entire year before Marvel replaced him with Brian Tucker, because they wanted to take the series in a new, presumably lamer direction. No offense to Mr. Tucker, I don't think any of this is his fault. So then Ali Salim and another guy named Thomas Bakuza were then brought on as directors. And then, according to THR's article, the creative process collapsed last summer. According to the article, what happened next debilitated the productions as factions became entrenched and leaders vied for supremacy during Secret Invasion's pre-production in London. A Marvel insider was quoted as saying it was weeks of people not getting along and it erupted. So by September of 2022, a good portion of the team had just been replaced, and the Marvel executive overseeing the show, Chris Gary, is now expected to leave the studio when his contract expires this year. And by the way, we covered extensively what happened behind the scenes of Secret Invasion in this video, where we talked about the Russian invasion of Ukraine and how it set everything back. A lot of things went wrong for this show. I'm not pointing fingers at any single creative force. And this brings us to Daredevil and how Marvel is finally fixing this problem. The writer and actor strike this year paused the production of Daredevil Born Again. That's the 16-episode Daredevil series that was supposed to launch next year. This pause gave Marvel time to reevaluate what they'd shot so far, and they decided that basically the show sucked. According to THR, Daredevil didn't even appear in costume until episode 4, and they weren't happy with the tone of the series, which was lighthearted and not dark like its Netflix predecessor. And I should say that for years now, Marvel Studios has been under immense pressure from Disney to make as much content as possible, cranking out more hours of programming in Phase 4 than Phases 1 through 3 combined, and the TV shows have slowly been getting worse. There were the rewritten endings of Hawkeye and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the uneven storytelling of Moon Knight, and the sorry y'all, we ran out of time CGI on She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel. But Secret Invasion broke a lot of fans. I think fan enthusiasm for Loki has been dampened by how terrible that show was. Fans feel burned, and now Marvel is finally back on track to make it right. And the thing is, guys, Loki deserves a massive amount of fan enthusiasm. Just a few episodes in, and the show's great. That's why we created this Loki-inspired merch at our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com. Now, we designed these shirts ourselves. There's a variant hoodie with the Screen Crush variant logo, the usual variants t-shirt with film and
Yes.
they shoot them, and then they'll have executives who are full-time TV executives instead of having executives split time between movies and TV shows. Marvel producer Brad Winderbaum told THR, "We need executives that are dedicated to this medium, that are going to focus on streaming, focus on television, because they are two different forms." So from now on, Marvel isn't just going to shoot a show and see what works. They're sticking to a real schedule, which should give us more moments like this. And God help us, no more moments like this.
You're going, Doctor.
It's also revamping its development process. Showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles. The days of Marvel shooting an entire series from She-Hulk to Secret Invasion, then looking at what's working and what's not, are done. Now, a little...
That's a good move for Marvel right now, for them to not just make a show, put it out there. And like I said, like, I haven't personally hated any of the shows that they put out. I don't think that they were the best bodies of work Marvel could have done. Absolutely not. But like I was saying earlier, that I feel like these are just stepping stones. They're not meant Now, originally they weren't meant to be like, oh, this is the best show ever made. I think they were meant to move the story along, to add new characters, and to just to bring just how vast the MC, to just broaden the MCU as a whole. So but like you know what I mean, the fact that they weren't even having pilots or anything like that makes sense. Like I'm not surprised at all. And the fact that they're like, okay, we need to start doing pilots, it'll bring us higher quality of shows, which I'm never going to be upset with better quality. Like nobody's going to be upset with better quality.
Later, I want to tell you how I think Marvel should implement this new plan. But first, I want to hear from the Marvel Brain Trust, Screen Crush Editor-in-Chief Matt Singer and YouTuber Whitney Van Landingham. So that's what's happened. Now to understand what's going to happen and where we go from here, I have to talk to Screen Crush Editor-in-Chief Matt Singer and Whitney Van Landingham, the co-host of the brand new Guardians of the Galaxy podcast, and also you can find her on the Whitney Vision YouTube channel. So, you know, we've all read this piece from the Hollywood...
Oh, she got her own YouTube channel? That's fire.
I'm not surprised by it. Matt, I'm curious, you know, for you, you've reviewed all of these Marvel shows. You've been with them every single step of the way. For you, when did this flaw in structure become apparent, that they weren't doing traditional TV, they were doing large movies cut up into pieces?
I feel like the first couple of shows went well enough that you were sort of going, yeah, they kind of have this figured out. And then after the first few shows, I don't really know what changed at that point, but it did start to feel like something did change. And when you read this article, I know my reaction was just a lot of like, oh, that makes sense, because it felt like all the complaints, like if I went back and looked at all the things I was saying about a lot of these shows, like Moon Knight and Secret Invasion and all of these different things, like where I was saying all of these things about how the tone would be all over the place, or the story would be kind of choppy, you know, or like all those sorts of things, then you would read this article and how people are quitting or being fired behind the scenes. There's power struggles behind the scenes, and people can't decide what kind of show they're going to make, or they would shoot all this stuff and then they would go in the editing room and decide it wasn't working and try to fix it with a reshoot or re-editing or something. And then you look back at what you saw and you go, well, that all checks out. That, like, I didn't know any of these details, but in hindsight, none of them were surprising after you read that piece. It sort of made sense of a lot of the issues that I was having.
I'm gonna turn my face cam off for a minute. My nose.
The book that's out now, this is called The Reign of Marvel Studios. It's a great read. We had the co-authors here on the channel last week talking about it. They also talked about how Marvel, you know, they exactly what's in this article, they pushed away traditional TV structure, and they did, according to this, they looked at certain projects and decided Hawkeye would be a better show than a movie, which I thought was kind of puzzling, because Hawkeye was the first time I watched one of these shows, and I thought, this doesn't seem episodic. This just seems like something they've cut up into pieces. Whitney, how about you? I mean, you've covered Marvel extensively during this entire TV. What was there a point for you when you were like, this feels wrong?
Honestly, WandaVision was just such a banger straight out of, even through Hawkeye, where like I did also feel like stuff was a little disjointed. It did really feel like, okay, this should have, I guess, been like a 4-hour movie instead of just like an entire TV series. And I think that I gave a lot of benefit of the doubt, especially to the earlier ones. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I kind of fell off. That one also felt like it should have been a movie to me. I know. I'm one of the very few people where, like, on the list, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is not towards the top for me.
It was uneven. I agree that there were certain decisions that were made, and maybe, Matt, that goes back to what you were saying about different creative voices coming in. But I think that one had...
Excuse my face cam not being on, but Falcon and Winter Soldier are, it's like the first half was good and the second half was good. The middle it it could have been a lot better. But I do think because of the material, it was I don't want to say material, but like I guess the topics that they were covering in it was like necessary at that point. You know what I mean, with the change of Captain America and things of that nature. So you know, it's a give and take with that specific thing.
Had a pretty steady hand at the wheel, from what I remember.
That makes sense. It didn't connect with me as much, especially because WandaVision was just so good. But I obviously like took like a hard pivot with Secret Invasion, because like I could kind of deal with all of it up until then, because in every show there were really great episodes and there was like really cool stuff that was revealed and really cool plot lines that I truly enjoyed and thought did add to the overall MCU. So none of them were like a waste of time for me. I thought that they were all, you know, it's a TV show, not the best TV show I've ever seen for some of them. But Secret Invasion, man, that just like messed me up. I had no idea why it was so dissatisfying, and the only parts that I felt were like truly amazing were just the scenes between Fury and Vara, because those were like absolutely incredible. But everything else was just so disjointed, so dissatisfying. The Maria Hill thing was ridiculous. I just, that show really made me like fall off the Marvel TV show wagon.
We did a video a while back, and I think it made a lot of fans fall off, because if you look at like Loki breakdown views on YouTube channels, not that's the best metric, but YouTube views are a good metric of fan enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Eventually the views picked up, but nowhere near where they were.
I actually saw your tweet about that, and then I started looking at people's numbers, and I was like, oh shit, this is weird.
It was scary. It picked back up. We're fine, everybody. We're fine. If you're concerned at home, we're fine. We're doing all right. But like, I thought we would have this much after 2 days, you know. But again, I think Loki's so good that the fans will come back for it. That's a different conversation.
For sure.
For me, around Moon Knight is when I started to go, ooh, this is getting repetitive. Like every episode's the same thing. Ms. Marvel at least had its episodes where there were COVID problems, and the budget was obviously less, and some villain, but every episode was a different episode.
Yeah.
Whereas like Secret Invasion especially was one where the whole show seemed like it was that cut up movie, and it really, just really sucked. Matt, if Secret Invasion... Do you think that Secret Invasion was their tipping point? Because it's interesting to hear they were continuing on with their...
It really sucked.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it sounded to me, I don't know that this was explicitly stated in that article, but what it read to me like was, you know, we had these strikes, one of which is still going on.
Talking about the writing strikes and how it pretty much affected that, the process of the MCU movies, which it did. But and there was rumors saying that the MCUs was using those AI bots to write the scripts too. So there was a lot of controversy about what's going on with scripts at the time certain shows were being written.
And as a result, you know, like Marvel had to take its hands to like everything got paused, and so they were able to look at what they had shot. So I don't know if it had as much to do with Secret Invasion as it had to do with the timing of, we've had to stop shooting everything we're shooting. Let's take a look at what we've got, because there's nothing else we can do. And when they looked at it, they realized, this isn't working. Who could imagine that a TV show called Daredevil that doesn't, apparently, according to this article, doesn't have an appearance in costume of Daredevil for the first 3 or 4 episodes? I can't imagine why that wouldn't work. What a shocker.
Like, what do those episodes look like? I want to know. I want to know what this shit show actually looks like.
Apparently...
I didn't know that, but if they really had it as Daredevil wasn't going to appear in costume for at least the 5th episode, with it being 16 episodes, it could have worked. Because we'll have 12 episodes with him most likely in his costume, but like true, like if he's already established and we don't have to go through his whole origin story again, why 4 episodes? Like the first 2 maybe, like maybe the first one I would assume, but like I would put it just does not make sense.
This article, lighthearted legal drama, which is so weird. And it was, the showrunner of Daredevil, tonight, I believe.
They were trying to turn it into Suits.
Said that the reason that he tweeted this, they changed the name to Born Again was so Disney could claim that it was a different show and not pay royalties to the original people. So maybe that's partially responsible for the change in tone. But Marvel is usually so good at giving fans what they want, or at least making that attempt. So it was a very strange pivot to me. The other behind-the-scenes things I've heard about Daredevil, and this is what's strange about this, right? When we talk about Marvel and we talk about here's this overall story, the rumors I've heard, take them for what they are. The rumors are Wilson Fisk running for mayor, and the platform he's running on is anti-vigilante. Anti-Daredevil, anti-Spider-Man. There's all this, like, these guys in the streets. Maybe there's some kind of mini Sokovia incident that happens in New York. Hell, that sounds great. You can bring the Punisher into that. Like, that premise alone sounds fantastic to me. But there you have the influence of Marvel Studios. But again, we get back to what this article talked about, which is the hiring of the showrunners, the vision, the message. It seemed like they were more interested in, okay, so here's the parameters, just go make a show. Yeah. And now they're going to have to adapt to this traditional storytelling for television. Whitney, do you think that's going to fit? Like, are we going to be able to get the Marvel that we like WandaVision within this structure?
Man, I hope so, because that's the thing that is just so bizarre, is that they were just switching off, like, creative direction, just kind of passing it along, and learning that, like, because of the strikes, obviously, I don't think for a second that Marvel or Disney did this because they found it in their hearts to do the right thing. It's absolutely because of the strike, but like they weren't even having showrunners be on a through line through some of these projects, and that just sucks. I mean, you have to let people's creative visions flourish in those situations. You can't just pass it off to a bunch of different people and expect it to be cohesive.
And she's absolutely right. That's like one of the reasons why like the Justice League didn't work, because they DC was understood Zack Snyder's situation, but they needed to get this movie out, so they just handed over this big project to somebody who had a completely different vision for it than what the whole year's set, like Zack Snyder has been setting up. So it definitely shows, like, a little bit of like, okay, like, yeah, they screwed up there, but it is what it. Sometimes it is what it is.
That they looked at it and were like, oh no, and then started making attempts to redo it, because that is absolutely what needs to happen.
It's interesting they did it midstream, because Marvel will do that, but they'll do it after they've wrapped photography. Like, let's fix it later, let's do it later, let's do it in our
I can't believe Marvel has we'll fix it in post. Like, most YouTubers do that, but not Disney. Come on.
Ever
like,
since Thor: The Dark World, they've had that policy, like, oh, we'll go back and gee, what a great job fixing that one in post too.
Yeah, Jesus.
Matt, when do you think, I know we talked a little bit about like the slow kind of when things started to feel disjointed. Is there a point for you when you recognize like, oh gee, Marvel TV bad, like Marvel Disney Plus not working? When did they lose you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of the shows have had a lot, problems, but they've also had good moments. I did think Secret Invasion was easily the worst one that they've done, where even with the other shows, even when there was episodes that I would get frustrated with or parts that I was frustrated with, it didn't feel like homework to tune in to watch them, whereas with Secret Invasion, that was the couple of episodes. But I mean, I think again, it's the sort of situation where your spider sense was tingling, so to speak, as you're watching these things, and you're going, what is going on here? Something is off. Something is not right. Even if, in a lot of cases, you know, there are good performances, interesting elements to all of these shows, great actors. You know, like I think of a show like Moon Knight, where I'm such a big Oscar Isaac fan. I loved what he was doing.
Same.
But then I watched the show, and when it was all done, I sat there and went like, you have this great actor and this very interesting character. Was this really like the best use of his time and this property and this concept? You know, this character with multiple personalities and all of those sorts of elements. He doesn't know. What was the show ultimately? It was just like a big chase scene for, you know, pointless MacGuffins. It's like, if ever like a character needed like a TV show, and not, you know, one story chopped up as people are going from one place to another chasing after something. I kind of felt like that was it. And yeah, again, that's another element of that article that when you read it, it makes sense. This idea that they really weren't making them like TV shows. They were making them like long movies, which, I mean, I suppose in some situations that could work. And like we said, the early Marvel shows were a lot of fun. They kind of came barreling out of the gate where you were like, wow, they figured this out just as well as they did making movies. So
we talked
again,
extensively. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it's.
I don't personally agree what he's saying about Moon Knight. Like some, I could get where he's coming from with like the better use of his time, but in that case, I feel like the story should have been longer. To me, Moon Knight is a perfect short origin story to tell us who Moon Knight actually is for the people who are like uneducated about his character, and that's how I looked at these at these shows. Is like, okay, these are just going to be short shows just to do a small origin of the character, to give us a snippet of their powers and possibly what how they're going to personally come into the MCU. So
it really is curious how the wheels really fell off pretty quickly after those first couple of shows, where all of a sudden every new series, you were like, the first episode would come and you're like, okay, that was kind of got some potential, and then the second episode would come out and you'd go, okay, and then the next episode, and by the third or fourth episode you go, well, they've only got like 3 episodes left to figure this out, and it's not really coming together, you know what I mean? That became kind of the way I would approach a lot of these shows. It would be like, you'd be very excited, the premise is great, all the people you want to see are in it, and then it's like week after week it was just like a increasingly frustrating, you know, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory kind of vibe, where you kept waiting for everything to come together. And some of these shows are like 6 episodes. It's not a lot of time, especially in TV, to get your act together.
But when we talk about these shows, the shows that I think we can universally, I would guess, praise the most are WandaVision and Loki. And both of them have a traditional TV structure where every episode is different. Now, Loki, you know, you are on this like madcap chase to find He Who Remains, but there's an episode on Lamentus. There is an episode where they find Sylvie in the store. Like, every episode does have its own thing. There's an episode at the end of time. Whereas everything else, like you said, Moon Knight just seemed like this long thing that was cut up, and it makes people feel disconnected from the narrative, and why should I have to wait a week? It also makes people just want to binge it, which is the opposite of what Disney Plus wanted when they switched to this episode-by-episode model. Whitney, what is it you want to see Marvel TV do now? Like, is it a season 2 for a certain character? Is it just like take a long break? Are you dying to see Agatha and Ironheart? Like, what is it you're, as a fan, looking forward to the most here?
I do really want to see Agatha, like, so bad. But that also is because of that WandaVision high, because Catherine Hahn was just so amazing in that. So of course I want to see that follow-up, but also at this point I'm a little scared because I don't want it to be bad. And a bunch of other, you know, Secret Invasion really is like the part where I'm just like, please God, I can't sit through another one of those. Like, you know, like Matt was just saying, every other show has like redeemable qualities, but I just could not get behind Secret Invasion. So if they can do Agatha correctly, I want to see that so bad. I also think that it's just really smart of them to hold off on Ironheart until that one is made well too, because of the success of, you know, Wakanda Forever and all that. Like, they want to keep that momentum going.
Well,
so I think it's smart that they're
filming
doing
last
these.
year, and now it's being pushed to next year.
Yeah.
Typically, studios don't sit on a winner for 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. I've heard good things. I've heard secondhand information from cast members that they really like it, but what are they going to say? You know.
Yeah.
And then you look at Wakanda Forever. When I look at that movie, I think the worst thing about it was that they shoehorned this character in for a spinoff. Like, it felt like a backdoor pilot for Riri Williams. Matt, what about you? Like, is there anything?
I was muted. I would love to be in this interview. I need to pay more attention to that. But
I'm most curious now after reading that article about seeing if anything changes when these shows come out. Is it going to feel? Are they going to feel different, or is it going to continue in the trajectory that it's been on? You know, I mean, I was sort of curious about what this Daredevil show was going to look like. I mean, it's funny how when you described, Ryan, what the show originally, what they shot, which they're now mostly discarding, what it was going to be, because it's nothing like the Daredevil Born Again comic, which is a great comic, which I would have loved to have seen, you know, the TV version of that. So, yeah, I mean, that's to me the main issue is like, what are we gonna see now when these shows that they've shot or they're working on now, when they come out, are they gonna feel more like Loki and WandaVision? Are they gonna feel more like a standard episodic television series, or is it gonna kind of continue in the same vein as your Secret Invasions or your Moon Knights or your Ms. Marvels? Although I thought that one was probably the best of those shows. So, you know, that's
Ms. Marvel had.
It was really
it had some good stuff in it. Yeah, it had some good
and
stuff.
I also just
Miss Marvel was my favorite. I'm not gonna lie.
The enthusiasm for it was so contagious and so palpable that it was like impossible for me not to like her, just because of like both her character and who she was and how excited she was in all the interviews about it. She was adorable.
Back to Secret Invasion, the one thing we know from that is throwing money at something does not fix it. It seemed like that core that got rotten pretty quick. Looking back at Daredevil, I think we were all looking forward to that. 16 episodes, Born Again, they're taking the Netflix thing, it's a perfect cast, we all love Daredevil. It's just, the idea that they're going to go back to showrunners and pilot scripts makes so much sense, because apparently they didn't do that with Daredevil. How do you have 3 episodes without and then just greenlight that? Like, yeah, that sounds good. To me, it almost sounds
their
like
homework on this.
It seems just it was compartmentalized, and that they just had to go. And we talked a lot about this last week and in our Secret Invasion kind of what the hell happened video. Disney's pumped the brakes. Like, once Iger came back in.
Here's one thing you need to do before buying anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this first. Watch this. I can show you how to get the sweetest deals online.
They realize, like, hey, we're really hurting the brand.
I really don't want to cut this stream short, but
as a fan,
I might just have to go to bed. Sorry about this.
What I've read on social media and stuff, fans seem okay with it. we'd rather wait a little longer than to get a stinker. I don't know though if the brand is permanently damaged after Secret Invasion or not. At least the Disney Plus brand. Do you guys think there's a future for Marvel TV? Should they even keep doing this, or should they do things like Werewolf by Night? Matt, what do you think? Where's their strength for success in this?
I mean, I would be shocked if they decided to stop making TV shows altogether. I do think we've already kind of seen definitely that they've kind of slowed down the output of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because the serialized nature of comic books is perfect for television. Like, in a way, it's kind of remarkable that they figured out how to be so successful making movies when comics were always more adaptable, at least structurally, to TV. I mean, one of the, you could say it as a positive or negative, but one of the things Marvel did when they made movies was they kind of turned movies into television, at least the kind of episodic, every film leads into the next film kind of structure of it all. So I don't see why Marvel can't make good shows, and they've proven they can. They've made a couple of good shows. So to me, it's yeah, I think it's less about abandoning television as it is maybe slowing the amount of stuff in general, maybe not just in TV, but TV and movies, and taking a close look at what they're making, how they're making it, and maybe also like who it's about. You know, like, not that I don't love seeing these random characters getting their own shows. I mean, for me, that's some of the most fun, because I love the weird, strange, quirky characters of Marvel. But maybe not all of them need their own 10-episode television series, perhaps. Yeah. Maybe the audience doesn't necessarily want that. You know what I mean?
I think we've proven that as far as fatigue, it has, like, I think Phase 4 of the MCU had more hours of programming than Phase 1 through 3 combined. So it's interesting, Whitney, we talk about, oh my God, there's only 6 episodes. How do you get to know this story in 6 episodes? But on the flip side of that, there's, do I have to watch 10 episodes of She-Hulk to understand the next Avengers movie? Where do you think that line lives? Like, do you think that we're better off with longer seasons that maybe affect the movies less so they don't feel like homework? Or should we stick to shorter content?
I mean, I just really think that it ultimately depends on the quality, because if it's a quality show, I don't mind doing the homework, because then it doesn't feel like homework. But obviously,
absolutely,
it's a problem if they're going to continue on, which it sounds like they're not. It sounds like they're going to try. I hope that they try. I hope that they succeed. But if they had just continued pumping out these, like, it is starting to feel like homework, because there's just so much, and you don't want to have to spend hours and hours and hours of your life just to be able to see the Marvels when it comes out in theaters, you know? Like, you might not want that, but I do think that you would want it if the content was good. So I'm torn. I just don't want them to do it with any more shitty shows, but as long as they really do fix the process, in that case, I'm down.
Going back to 2021, nobody was saying, oh God, another Marvel? Maybe because we'd had a year without anything.
Yeah.
But 2021, we had, off the top of my head, I think 5 shows, counting What If. We had 3 movies. Black Widow was even a hybrid release, and we were down for it. And looking back, I mean, Matt, I know you didn't like the Eternals. We've had discussions about that, but it's leagues better than Secret Invasion. And as much as people might not like Hawkeye, it's a lot better than Secret Invasion.
Yeah, I apologize for what I said about the Eternals before I knew that Secret Invasion was the way it was.
I don't understand why people didn't like the Eternals as much. I feel like it was a great introduction to their characters. I feel like the actors did an amazing job presenting those characters, and the visuals were amazing. Granted, afterwards, in the shows following, they didn't say much about, like, the hand coming out the ocean, this, that, and the third. But, like, in all reality, other than social media now, like, how often do anybody hear about anything that happens in the other countries or anything like that, unless you have your social media set for, like, news? And most people don't. So it's one of those situations where it's like, you know what I mean, it works, and I believe it that took place right after the the snap came or right after they came back from the snap, one or the other. But so it's like one of those things where it's like what are you going to be more worried about? An island that came out the ocean in the shape of a hand, or half the populace that just came back from God knows where they were, you know what I mean? So like I feel like they did a good job, well, not a good job, a decent job at like having the Eternals thing, and then like, you know, like not a lot of people are going to be worried about it right now, because they you know what I mean, like my little brother, my big brother just came back, and now I'm 5 years older than him, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And this year,
I don't apologize. I don't take back anything. I don't see what one has to do with the other.
No, don't directly impact the other, but like when you're talking about a slope of quality, I think that they definitely, I thought they had hit a low point with a lot of stuff that like from like Thor the Dark World, but boy, they proved me wrong. So Matt, Whitney, thank you both very much for joining me. Their socials are below. Matt is also the author of the upcoming Siskel and Ebert biography.
Sides of Marvel seamlessly integrated like they were at the start of Phase 2. You see, very briefly, Marvel Studios film and television studios were coordinated by the Marvel Creative Committee. Very long story short, this system fell apart because of internal Marvel politics. But the best for me was when the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ended on a cliffhanger that was resolved 2 days later when The Winter Soldier was released. And then to see the epilogue of The Winter Soldier, you had to watch the next episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It's got to be some sort of activation signal to Hydra members within S.H.I.E.L.D.
So coordination like that is really difficult on a network TV schedule, but they pulled it off. And I would think that they would be able to do this more often with the streaming service, because they have not promised advertisers ad time on any of these shows. So what I want to see for the Daredevil show is a full coordination with the next Spider-Man film. Like I said, rumor has it that the show would have shown Wilson Fisk running for mayor, railing against vigilantes like Spider-Man. And we are dying to see Spider-Man and Daredevil team up, this time in costume.
I'm a really good lawyer.
So I would love to see this new Daredevil series lead to a mayoral election and a gang war that is resolved in the next Spider-Man film. They already teased that the next Spider-Man movie would be more street level, and maybe violence breaks out across the city, so Peter is desperate, so he turns to the darker, more powerful Venom symbiote, since he doesn't have Tony Stark's armor to rely on anymore. And that symbiote then imitates the darker heroes from the Daredevil show, like him and the Punisher. Like, this is just a taste of the kind of crossover potential that Marvel has, and they have barely scratched the surface. Well, let me know, what do you think Marvel will do next? What kind of TV shows do you want to see? What TV show do you want to see get a season 2? Let me know in the comments below, or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that.
Daredevil and Spider-Man teaming up would be amazing. The incorporating shows, like coinciding shows with movies, would be amazing as well. A lot of good ideas, and like I'm all for it. I personally just want more. So yes, I want better quality from shows as well, but like I said, I was more looking at these shows just introducing characters, so we don't have to get a whole history in the middle of a movie, or, you know what I mean, have to make a movie 4 hours long because we have these 4 new characters that we know nothing about. But yeah, like I get where they're coming from. I like, you know what I mean, everybody's gonna have a different opinion on shows and all that. Like you know, they felt like certain ones were dragging, which I do agree. I don't agree about how bad Secret Wars was. Like, yeah, the only good parts was when Samuel was talking to his wife, but at the end of the day, like it's a setup. You know what I mean? So, but like the fact that the MCU is going to be pretty much doing a whole reboot is like a good thing in my opinion as well. But that's all I have for you today. I'm not feeling well. I actually wanted to stream for like 4 hours today, but like I'm just not feeling it. But I hope you guys have a good daytime, night, and you know, enjoy it, and I hope you like, comment, and subscribe if you like the content I was talking about, like what I was talking about and everything.